Okay, good day. Welcome again to our lecture video. Our topic for today is morphology. So I know this is quite familiar to you since we have been into this in our previous lecture videos. So what is morphology again? It is the study of word formation and its structure. It studies how words are put together from smaller parts in the rules governing this process. So when I'm talking about smaller parts, I am talking about the morphemes. And when I say about rules governing this process, I'm talking about the word formation processes. So for now, I will discuss about morphemes, and in our next lecture video or in another lecture video, we will talk about word formation processes. I will give you more than 10 word formation processes. So just be updated with this lecture video and the next lecture video. Okay, so again, when I say smaller parts, I'm referring to morpheme. So what is a morpheme? So it is the smallest unit of language that has a meaning or a grammatical function. So it means that a unit without a meaning is not a morpheme, or a unit without a grammatical function or a meaning is not a morpheme. So there are two types of morphemes. So first is the free morpheme or the independent morpheme. Second is the bound morpheme or the dependent morpheme. So why is free morpheme called free? Why is free morpheme called independent morpheme? So this is called free since it can be free. It can stand alone. It can occur alone. So it is meaningful on its own. So for example, sing, building, and, or, of. So each of them has its own meaning. So for you to understand more what is free morphemes, let's divide this into two, since there are also two types of free morphemes. So first is the lexical morpheme, also known as content morpheme or referential morpheme. So what these morphemes are? These are morphemes that have semantic content and usually refer to a thing, quality, or action, or even an event. For example, cat, John, car, fast, give, medium. So we are referring to nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and verbs, right? Okay, so when you say functional or grammatical morphemes, these are morphemes that have little or no meaning on their own, but they will be meaningful if they are put together with the lexical morphemes. So, but which show grammatical relationships in and between sentences. So, for example, these are represented by prepositions, conjunctions, articles, demonstratives, auxiliary verbs, and pronouns. So examples for prepositions, we have in, on, at, above, under, through, across, beneath. So example for conjunctions, we have and, or, but, however, nevertheless, some transition devices. Another example for articles. So, like a headset, an apple. So you will use an if the next word to the article is beginning with a consonant, or you will use an if the next word is beginning with a vowel sound, like an apple, a headset. So headset, it starts with a consonant, so you will use a. So don't be confused, because that's too basic, yet many are still mistaken with a and an. So the is also in article. So in your syntax structure, for example, you will do the parsing. The articles are also called determiners. So we also have demonstratives like these. When you will say these, pronounce that as these for many, if you're referring to many things. This, it's abrupt. This, if you are only referring to one. Those, and also auxiliary verbs. So auxiliary verbs is are, was, were. Okay. So for pronouns, you have she, he, I for the special pronoun. So those are functional or grammatical morphemes, or it functions to achieve a perfect grammar, or to achieve a complete thought of the sentence, or complete idea of the sentence. Because without this functional morphemes, the idea or the complete idea in a sentence will not also be achieved. So they are as important as the lexical morphemes. Okay, so let's proceed to the second type of morpheme. First, we have the free morpheme, or the independent morpheme. So here we have the bound morpheme or the dependent morpheme. It means that it is depending to the free morpheme, or they are attached to, these morphemes are attached to the free morphemes. So they never occur alone as words, but as parts of words. So for example, in farmer, S in talks, ed in adjusted. So for example, in talks, if you will be asked how many morphemes are there in the word talks, so you'll be answering two morphemes. Of course, why? Because first is the talk, second is the S. So also for the word adjusted, if you will be asked how many morphemes are there in the word adjusted, so there are two morphemes. First is the adjust, and second is the it. So you will pronounce that word as adjusted, not adjusted, adjusted, since the root word or the free morpheme ends with letter T. So if ever the word will end in letter T, or the word ends in letter T or letter D, alveolar, remember, alveolar sounds, so they will, or the ed will be pronounced as id. So adjusted, studded, so like that. So there are also two types of bound morphemes. So if there are two types of morphemes, the free and the bound, there are also two types of the free morphemes, the lexical and the grammatical. So also for the bound, there are also two types, so do not be confused. So for the bound morphemes, there are two types. First is the inflectional bound morphemes, and second is the derivational bound morphemes. So what is the difference between the two? This is very simple. The first, inflectional bound morphemes, when it does not change the grammatical category. Example, the bound morpheme S. If you add that to the word play, the word play will become place. So play and place are both verbs. Therefore, the free morpheme play is not changing in terms of grammatical category. Therefore, the bound morpheme attached to it, which is the S, is an inflectional bound morpheme. So, for derivational bound morpheme, it will produce new lexeme or often changes word class. It uses derivational materials or prefixes and suffixes such as an, the, able, full, etc. So example for that, beauty. Beauty is a noun. Beautiful is an adjective. So the suffix used is full. So from beauty to beautiful, noun to adjective. So another example is adjust. Adjust. So adjust is a verb. Adjustable is an adjective. Adjustment is a noun. Okay, so the meant, the able are both derivational bound morphemes. So if you say unadjustable, so adjustable plus unadjustable, the un there becomes an inflectional bound morpheme. Why? Because unadjustable and adjustable are both adjectives. So be careful that not all prefixes are derivational bound morpheme. So just try to understand that if it changes the grammatical category, automatically that's a derivational bound morpheme. But if it does not change anything, that's inflectional bound morpheme. So as simple as that. So before we will end, let's have a short recap. So we have the two types of morpheme. Morpheme is the smallest unit of language that has a meaning or a grammatical function. And then the morpheme has two types, the free morpheme and the bound morpheme. The free morpheme has two types, the lexical and the functional morphemes. So lexical morphemes refers to verb, adjectives, nouns, and adverbs. So functional morphemes refers to the prepositions, conjunctions, articles, demonstratives, auxiliary verbs, and pronouns. Okay, so there are also two types of bound morphemes, the inflectional and derivational bound morpheme. You will know that it's derivational if a certain lexeme or a new grammatical category is being derived. Okay, so that's all for this topic. Thank you for listening and keep learning.